Yeah, but we can, as soon as we get Zoom going.
You have a minute for that, or?
I'm just about ready. I just need to adjust
No
the
way.
camera.
We'll take a break later if I have to use the facilities. Definitions. Well, that's gonna be right away anyway. Noel, good afternoon, sir. Will, Miguel. Look, we're putting the band back together. We have more members of the commission than we've had in some time. Look at this. We need 4 for a positive vote. And 2 can dissent. Wow. Wow. That's pretty impressive. It's full now, but we're still missing one. Missing one member.
Yeah.
But this is a full of currently seated members. Which
Okay, so there's not, if there's an empty.
there's an empty seat. This is the most members we've had present at a meeting in as long as I can remember. It's been a while.
Okay. Could everybody turn their microphones on?
Okay, let's do a sound check, everyone.
Check.
Check.
Will, Miguel, Noel, you're gonna have to share. Wonderful.
Okay. You're good to go.
All right, good afternoon. It is 4:49 p.m. and we will call this regular meeting of the City Plan Commission to order Tuesday, September 19th. Let's do a quick roll call. Let's go around and do a voice. Cole Verdi.
Nicole, here.
Noel Sanchez. Will Sherry.
Miguel Quesada.
Charlotte Lipschitz.
Shayan Manjrekar, DPD staff.
Bob Azar, staff.
Megan DeSanto, council.
And Michael Gazdaco, chair. Next, we'll move right into the approval of the minutes of the August 15th, 2023 meeting. I hope you've all received your minutes, the draft minutes, and had a chance to peruse them. Move to accept. Okay. Before we have a second.
The next thing for
Make it a second.
All right, we have a full, we'll just take a voice, a yay or nay. All in favor of approving the minutes, say yay.
Yeah.
Yay. Abstentions? Any opposed? All right. Minutes carry. So then we'll move on to the director's report.
I think I'll save my comments for item number 2.
Okay. Then with that, we'll roll right into the agenda. Agenda item number 1, which is a request for extension, case number 19-051 MA 311 9th Street. Shoyan, you want to kick this one?
Sure, and commissioners, real quick, this is a project that is currently in the process of receiving final plan approval. The applicant has been before you with the final plan. And that was one of the steps that you asked of them, which was for the applicant to appear before you as a part of their final plan approval. And they are in the process of fulfilling the other conditions of approval. And so they have asked for an extension for 1 year to October 2024. So we would recommend that you grant that extension.
Okay, is the applicant here or are we just doing this as a matter of course?
We do have the applicant's representation, but I don't believe that we need to ask any questions unless.
There's nothing substantive to change to just request
The first extension.
Yes, the first extension of their final plan.
I don't guess I haven't been here a year yet. I don't remember the project.
No, you wouldn't. have
Actually,
seen this
you
one.
didn't see this one. Yeah, that's right.
Out of that.
I'm happy to make a motion to extend for 1 year.
Wonderful. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we'll go around and we'll do voice vote. Nicole?
Aye.
Noel?
Aye.
Will? Aye. Miguel? Miguel?
Aye.
Charlotte?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Takes a lot longer when you have a full slate. That's nice. Moving along to agenda item number 2. This is going to be Bob's director's report. It's a city council referral number 3555, changes to state law and development review regulations.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. So what you have in front of you is a bunch of changes to our zoning ordinance, and these are all required because of changes in state law that were recently passed at the end of the General Assembly session in the spring. They passed a series of bills that were all intended to streamline the zoning process and to generate more housing. And there were 4 of those that apply to the city of Providence. A lot of the other ones apply to cities that don't meet the affordable housing requirements of the state. But the ones that do apply to us require us to amend our zoning ordinance. Furthermore, these state laws take effect January 1st. So we have a very short amount of time within which to amend our zoning. We started working on these changes as soon as they were passed, and we've given you some updates along the way, and here we are with the actual changes. I've provided you with every article that has a change in it. This will be distilled down to a much shorter ordinance that will be introduced to the city council, but I wanted you to be able to see the changes in context. And I want to I'm not going to walk through every one of these changes, but I'm going to walk through my memo and sort of describe what these changes are all about. Now, one caveat to my first statement. Just about everything is to comply with the state laws that were passed this year. There are a couple that are intended to comply with state laws that had passed previously, but we had not yet made amendments. So there will be a couple of those. So what I'm going to do is just walk through each of the articles and what the changes are, and then I'm happy to if you want to interrupt me with questions, I'm happy to do that, or we can save questions until the end, however you want to do it. So I'm going to start with Article 2. You'll see that there are several definitions that were added or changed, and these will all get explained as I move through this. There are changes to definitions, and then a change also to the rules of measurement that I'll explain in a minute. So the substance actually starts in Article 4, and specifically with Table 4-1. Table 4-1 is the table of dimensional standards for residential zones, and this is changing in a significant way because there's a new state law that says that we can't restrict the number of, sorry, bear with me just a quick second here. I just want to read the language in the law. It applies to substandard lots of record. Substandard lots of record are those that are undersized. In Providence, most of our residential districts require at least 5,000 square feet of land. Anything smaller than that would be considered substandard. So what the law says now about substandard lots of record is a substandard lot of record shall not be required to seek any zoning relief based solely on the failure to meet minimum lot size requirements of the district in which such lot is located. So what that means a lot of different things, but critically what it means is if we allow for a certain number of dwelling units in a zone, we can't mandate a certain amount of land for every dwelling unit. So for example, if you're in a 3-family zone and you have a substandard lot of record, you can get 3 units on that lot, regardless of how big it is. So we had to amend the table to reflect that. That's why we struck all this language about smaller lots being allowed, for example, to have a 2-family and so forth. So that's an important one. Another feature of this provision says that as lots get smaller, we have to decrease our required setbacks, and we have to allow for lot coverage to increase proportionally to the size of the lot relative to a conforming lot size. So we've added that language in, and we've also taken out any regulations that we already had that reflected narrower setbacks for undersized lots, and also language about lot coverage. Now, this is a little bit of a problem for us because in Providence, we have some very small lots, and we could get to a situation where if you have a lot that's half the size, say, of a standard lot of record, 2,500 square feet, we would have to allow lot coverage to double. We do have to allow lot coverage to double. That could mean 90% of a lot, because our maximum lot coverage is 45% in some cases. We'd have to allow it to go up to 90%. In a residential zone, from our perspective, that's not acceptable. So a little bit of a workaround here. I think it complies with the letter and the spirit of the law, which is we've increased the amount of the lot that needs to have, we've created a bare minimum amount of the lot that needs to be pervious, that needs to be earth that can absorb water. So while lot coverage can get bigger, and it will as lots get smaller, you still have to maintain at least, in this case, we're saying 1,000 square feet of pervious surface. We've also increased the rear yard setback a little bit, because as the lots get smaller, the rear yard setback has to get smaller. So we didn't want it to get too small. So we think we've calibrated this pretty well. It's gonna have an effect, but I don't think it's gonna have a terribly negative effect on Providence, because we already allow small lots to be developed. Okay. I'm going to move on to Article 6, which is the downtown district. We made the same language change in this article probably 20 times. All we're doing here is reflecting the new law as it pertains to something called development plan review. Right now, our downtown design review committee is a development plan review commission, development plan review body, and we have we allow review to happen by the committee, and we also allow some review to happen by staff. So we call it review by the committee and review by staff. The new law renames those. They call it formal development plan review and administrative development plan review. And both the Downtown Design Review Committee and the staff, which is now going to be called the administrative officer, they're both called permitting authorities. So we are changing the language in here to reflect that it's the permitting authorities that have the ability and the authority to do the review. So that's essentially all we're doing in Article 6. I'm going to pause just for a second, because I also want to state that a lot of one of these laws also requires us to amend the regulations for land development projects and subdivisions. And now all development plan review processes are going to have to be in those regulations as well. Those are going to get adopted by you, not by the city council. Zoning gets adopted by the city council. we'll be coming to you next month with the rules, the new development review regulations. A lot of what is in the ordinance that pertains to development plan review is struck from the ordinance. It's going to reappear and be refashioned in the development review regulations. Is everybody following me so far? This is complicated. These laws are very complicated. It took a lot of us a long time to sort of figure out what's going on. I want to give special thanks to Alexis Thompson, our zoning enforcement officer, to Lev Simon, to Choyan, to Megan and Sharon in the law department, and also Chris Issei. We've all been working on this, and this is a heavy lift for us to get this done. So any questions so far?
Just a couple questions on the residential district. So do we not have minimum lot size in the building,
So we do for new subdivisions.
but not for existing?
For existing, we've never had minimums for existing. You could always put a single family house on a lot of any size. But what you couldn't do is have more than only under certain circumstances could you have more than that. Now, if a use is allowed, 1 family, 2 family, 3 family, etc., as long as you're in a zone that permits that use, you'll be able to build it on a lot of any size. That will no longer require a variance.
Is there a minimum house size?
No, but there are maximum lot coverage, there are required setbacks, there's required on-site parking, there's now required pervious surface, and there's required landscaping. So once you combine all of those regulations together, there's going to be a footprint, which will imply parking will still be required.
So bring a lot of older buildings into conformance.
It will bring a lot of older buildings into conformance. All right.
And if you had a chance to review these before the meeting, you'll see a lot of instances where, like Bob just pointed out, I thought that was very helpful that he pointed it out at that time. There are a lot of instances throughout where it just strikes it and says, refer to the development plan review guidelines throughout, or the design committee, the downtown design committee is just struck and replaced with the administrative body or
Right.
officer, a lot of it is that, but there is some substance too, and we'll get back to that.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on to Article 12, we're on page 2 of 2. This one, one of these state laws, first of all, accessory dwelling units. There was a law that was passed a couple of years back in 2022. We hadn't last June. We hadn't updated our zoning to reflect that. We now have. Simply taking language verbatim out of the state law and putting it into the language, it broadens the ability to create an accessory dwelling unit. Not as far as we might be going one of these days, but for example, the building still has to be owner occupied. It no longer has to be a single family dwelling. There are a couple other nuances to it, but it's not a major change. We're just reflecting what's in the state law. Special use permits. The new law says if you have a use by special permit and you don't have conditions, it's considered a permitted use. So we now have had to go into our zoning ordinance and find all the uses by special use permit that didn't contain special conditions. And we've done one of 3 things. We've either added conditions, we've made them permitted, because when all's said and done, is it something we're comfortable with? Yes, then we made it permitted. Or in certain circumstances, we decided not to allow it. An example of that is a principal use parking lot in a residential district. Am I right, Alexis?
Country club.
That's one change.
But also country club,
Country club is
golf
residential
course.
district. Yeah, exactly.
There's some others that are more applicable. Country club, golf course,
Right,
and those were all in residential districts.
Right.
We can talk about.
Right.
If you know.
so there's that. And in some cases, we piggybacked on other uses that had conditions, but
Simple.
this, we think we got this right.
And you can
Next,
see those changes on 12.3.
yeah, so that's
We
all
just
in
skip this.
Article 12. So next, there's in the new statute, one of the new statutes, there are regulations that say that non-residential buildings in residential zones, we have to allow those to be adaptively reused for housing. So we added those regulations. This is something that we generally have allowed through a variance process. And they, we've had a couple that have been allowed through a zoning change. But for the most part, I think this is a good standard. This would be for something like a church or an old school building. We even have some industrial buildings in residential zones. This is creating an easy process where they can be converted to housing. And potentially mixed use, but the non-residential uses have to be somehow allowed either by right or by special permit in the residential zone. And next, the number of people receiving daycare in a family daycare home. This is not related to these new laws. This is related to existing laws on the books. There are two conflicting laws regarding family daycare homes, one in zoning, one in Health and Human Services or DHS regulations. So we've just modified this so that we're consistent with both. And what that means is we bumped up from 8 to 12
For a home day.
the number of people who can receive care in a home daycare. All right.
Before you go to
Yes.
17, on the accessory dwelling, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought you said it doesn't matter if it's owner occupied. Because it.
It does.
It's still required,
Oh, okay, I
Yeah.
thought you said,
Yeah.
that's what it says on the
Yeah.
other document. Okay.
but it doesn't have to be.
A single family.
It used to be that it only was allowed in a single family house.
The two major changes that apply to Providence right now for accessory dwelling, based on the law that was approved last summer, 2022, are that it no longer only has to be in, it can be in a multi-family, 2-family, 3-family, or 4, more. But it still has to be owner occupied. And then the other change is that it used to be, the mandate for accessory dwelling unit was for someone 62 years or older or with developmental disability. That has also been opened up to say any family member. Family member, owner occupied, house of 1, 2, 3
That's right.
units.
Okay, but it still has to be a familial relationship.
It says family.
Yes.
There was discussion of a much broader
Right.
ADU law, and that didn't get passed.
Right.
So there's still potential to come back next year and change that again.
I have a feeling we'll be back for you. I know.
That
Yes.
Seems very unenforceable. Or at least you make it for the family member.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
Right.
Right, right,
Who's checked.
right.
Tricky, no.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
So is it grandfathered in when the property changes hands, so it says sells or?
not currently.
It would have to, in order for us to determine that it was owner occupied, we would need something recorded against the property so that when the property sold, that would come up in the title search and the next owner would have no anything. What was required of them to maintain.
So is that gonna go into the minimum housing standards and the code enforcement stuff?
So every part of zoning is enforced by our Department of Inspection and Standards. And if there is a an accessory dwelling unit that doesn't comply with the ordinance, it could be subject to a violation.
Not to keep dwelling on this, pun intended. Does it still have to be within the built environment, meaning converting a garage or a basement, or can someone I think we talked about this before, actually constructing a different structure on the actual lot, like a.
Shisha.
An outbuilding,
Yeah.
yes, it could be in any kind of
But it
out.
could be new though?
Well, no, I apologize.
It has to be.
I apologize. I'm thinking about,
Conflating them,
yeah, we're conflating things. In this particular case, it can only be within the principal structure right now. That's the way it's written. There had been a lot of discussion about allowing them in outbuildings, but right now that's not the case.
So detached garage wouldn't qualify still.
Yeah. Now, that doesn't mean we couldn't change our ordinance to allow for that. We could do that regardless of what the state law says. We haven't chosen to do that. I'll just say this, that you know, there was a bit of an impulse in this exercise to try and throw in a bunch of stuff that we've been thinking about, but we're not doing that. I want this to be very clear. I want to make the point again and again to you and to the council that we're doing this because we have to.
Ideally, these changes would be happening about a year from now, when we're wrapping up our comprehensive plan rewrites and we have a lot more information from the community of what we want to be doing. Right now, this exercise is happening because we are legally obligated to make these changes by January 1st. And if we don't comply, projects could be approved because we failed to act.
What's the difference between an apartment and an accessible dwelling? That need to use?
Not much, except for the ADU is restricted to who can live there based on relationships with the owner and so
Does it
forth.
need to have additional exits and all that? So it's in a basement, let's say.
Self-contained dwelling unit.
It can be either a separate, it has to be a self-contained dwelling unit in that it affords all of the elements of the definition of dwelling. Place to eat, sleep, sanitation, with, it can be a part, it can be sort of, how I think it was imagined in previous times as an in-law apartment that's within a unit, an area within an existing unit that was a self-contained suite, or it can be a separate unit. It still has to comply with the family member occupancy, the owner occupancy, and being in the principal structure. And I'll note that it still has to comply with all buildings. So there are, I think, like many of you know, there are thresholds whereby, for instance, if when a two-family house becomes like a third unit, we might call it in zoning an accessory dwelling unit, but if you look at it, it's a third unit, and that would fall under the current building code requirements for adding a third unit. So you know that would require potential egress upgrades and other, you know, health and safety considerations from anyone wanting to add one. I will say we haven't had we haven't had a major influx of the applications for these in the last year since this happened.
I don't think that's on, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Just be careful, it doesn't feed back. I'm
This is tricky.
a little concerned about your proximity there, but that's all right. Give it a shot.
Okay. Thanks, Jim.
Okay,
Just- I know we're not, well, so just because I've been hearing a bit in the Spanish community about making basement units legalized and stuff, and so I know there's always been it's been happening, but there's a push to kind of make them legal in some communities, and so this is what we're talking about.
well, it could be, it could be. The other thing is that the rules we talked about in Article 4 could allow for an additional unit within an undersized lot in a zone that allows for it. But any basement apartment, attic apartment, any new apartment still is gonna have to comply with the building code. You can't have a dwelling unit without adequate egress and things like that.
But you could put an ADU in a three-family house, and it wouldn't be a fourth apartment in an R3 zone.
It would be a three-family house plus an ADU.
So
And it would
in an
comply.
R3 zone.
Yes,
As long as
there's
all the
principal
conditions-
use and accessory use. ADU is an accessory use. It's semantics.
Yeah.
It might look exactly like one of the other apartments.
No, but it's good to know.
Yeah.
People are asking.
It is limited to one
It's actually.
Limited to one per,
per building.
Yeah.
You can't put two because.
Correct.
It's a big basement or something.
yes.
That's actually a really good point. In the state law, it does talk about a single. unit.
Yep.
So
Yep.
It's not,
Yeah. Yes.
You can't have 4 ADUs
Yeah.
to make it. You can have one.
Okay,
and not by an investor on property. Also.
It's, yeah,
owner
owner
occupied.
occupied.
Yeah.
With a family
Family,
member
family member.
occupying the ADU.
Have a lot of-
Okay. How about we move on to Article 17?
Please, thank you.
All right, so under the new laws, this term administrative officer comes up again and again. Right now, Choyan and I are both your administrative officers. Under the development review regulations, we're the staff when it comes to subdivisions and land development projects. There's also going to be staff now when it comes to development plan review. People who do administrative development plan review will be administrative officers. So we can name as many administrative officers as we need to carry out the purposes of the act. So that's something you'll see in Article 17. The Downtown Design Review Committee is still going to conduct development plan review, but we have to call it a technical review committee. That's the way that the law provides for that to happen. For development plan review to be done by someone other than the administrative officer or the planning board. So we're going to call it a technical review committee. And you, the City Plan Commission, are going to continue to be able to do development plan review when it comes to institutional master plans, primary and secondary schools, and the like. All right, that's Article 17. That's ordinance administrators. Then we get into application and notice procedures. This includes fees. There's new notice. So first of all development plan review procedures come into the development review regulations. That's reflected in Article 18. Notice is changed in a strange way. It says it has to be in a newspaper of local circulation versus general circulation. Doesn't matter. We have one newspaper that we can advertise in Providence. We don't have the Valley Breeze or some of these other local newspapers. So it really doesn't matter to us. And then all the fees that relate to land development, subdivision, development plan review come into the development review regs. Article 19. This has been changed because the standards for granting variances and special use permits and administrative modification have all been changed. So we made those updates. More relating to administrative development plan review. This is all just sort of a renaming. Administrative development plan review, formal development plan review. We've now put those in. And then finally, Article 20 is relating to nonconformities. We've already talked about this issue of non-conforming substandard lots of record, where we have to adjust our dimensional regulations accordingly. Importantly, there's a new section that relates to what can happen with uses that are allowed by variance. I've talked about this before. There are two concepts in zoning to relate to things that aren't allowed today. One is a non-conforming use, which means it was allowed at some point in history. It's not allowed now because the ordinance has changed. That's called a non-conforming use. However, if you went to the zoning board and you got a use variance to do the same thing, it's a different mechanism and there are different rules that apply to it. That's called a use by variance. So we have one set of rules for non-conforming uses, one set of rules for uses by variance. Formerly under the Enabling Act, there were lots of things you could do, lots of flexibility in changing or allowing for intensification or some kind of change to a non-conforming use. You had no tools whatsoever to deal with uses by variance. So you might have a highly undesirable use in a residential zone, say an auto body in a residential use. And if somebody wanted to convert that to housing, it would be, unless it was fully compliant, it would be impossible to do. We now have new tools in the Zoning Enabling Act to allow us to do that. So we've included those. Uses by variance now will have rules very similar to those that we already have for non-conforming uses. So that's what that is. So that kind of sums it up. What I'd like to say to you is that we are now in the process of working on the development review regulations. We have an internal draft. We're going to be meeting several times over the next month. We'll be back to you with those. You'll eventually have to schedule a public hearing on those regulations and pass them before the end of the year. We're hoping this can move on to the council tonight. I went with the city clerk through the schedule. The earliest we can hold a public hearing on this is early November. And that means the earliest we can get second passage is the first meeting in December. Turns out that's going to be the last meeting of the year for the city council. So we have no leeway here. This has to get to the council. I don't want to twist your arm, but what I'll say is the hearing won't happen until after next month's meeting. So if there are further questions that you have about this, and I'd like to reserve the right to kind of go back and review it as well. So we can have another opportunity at the October meeting to go over this together. So that's all I have to say right now, unless you have any further questions.
So you're not calling for a vote on this today?
No, we definitely need a recommendation
You're
today,
saying to council.
or we
Yes.
will not get it passed in time for it to take hold before January 1st. Because this has to be sent to the city council so that they can send it to committee and then push it back to the full council for 2 votes in order to change.
Basically, these are changes to simplify with state law. Though.
They
It's already
are,
approved.
correct.
So there's not like leeway we have really here.
I think they actually did, Bob and Alexis did a very good job of the use tables, because that was my biggest concern is how are we going to create categories for special use permits, or the clear, I can't remember the wording in the law that was passed, but it's actual substantive criteria for each special use permit that we put forward. So a lot of the ones that they changed from a special use permit to permitted, they make sense. The few that they struck, that makes sense too. I think that's probably, as far as I'm concerned, the biggest area of leeway that we have aside from state law compliance that we could discuss. Other than that, it's really all semantics, and the real meat we're going to be looking at next month, which is the development review regulations, which a lot of these speak to And that's going to be significantly changed because there's a lot of language in the zoning ordinance that just kicks it to the development review regulations.
My only question is back at the ADU thing, it says it broadens the population that may occupy. Are we specifying who may or who may not?
For accessory dwelling units, yes. Yes, we are.
It's in the
Again,
struck language.
again, it's,
Yes, it's to comply, actually, basically, you took the language from the state law, basically, right?
yes. So,
It's on page 12-1. The ordinance, and you give a law about.
Yeah, so it's 12(1). An accessory dwelling unit in an owner occupied residence is permitted as a reasonable accommodation for family members with disabilities or who are 62 years of age or older, or to accommodate other family members. That's
so
added.
that's it.
And then it struck a whole bunch of other language and
Yeah.
continues on to the additional language. That's
Simplify it,
allowed.
made it broad.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
You guys, at this point, unless you have any other immediate questions for staff, I would recommend that we open this up to public comment. This is a public hearing. We can always come back with more questions after public comment during deliberations and decisions, but since this is a public hearing, I think at this point, we should open it up to public comment. There may be people here interested in saying something about this agenda item. So at this point, if you're joining us virtually, on the Zooms, on the interwebs, please raise your virtual hand in the middle bottom portion of your screen, or press *9 if you're calling in. And if you're here, I don't know if we had a sign-in sheet. I didn't see anyone on it for this agenda item, but if you're here, maybe just raise your hand and we'll call you out. Okay, we'll take, come on up. And we're gonna ask that we limit the time on this to 2 minutes per person. And we have a busy agenda. It was on, is it still on? Good.
But-
No, it's not.
Sorry, can you turn the mic on?
Oh, it's the batteries. Well, we have people joining us from home. So we want to be cognizant that everyone's able to hear all of the public comment. I think if you don't use it for a certain amount of time, power saves or the batteries die.
I just had a couple of questions. One,
Please state your name.
yes,
and
my name
address
is
for the record.
Lily Bogosian. I'm the president of the Fox Point Neighborhood Association. I live on John Street in Providence. And
Thank you.
one question I have is, in terms of the document itself, is the public entitled to a copy of that? Is it somewhere?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we have it
Thank
posted, we have it
Okay.
posted on the
Thank you.
website, City Plan Commissions.
Okay, and then the second question I have is, and as you said, it is complicated, and I can't pretend to understand all the new assignments that you've made or that the state has made. I have two questions about that. One is with regard to enabling a greater number of people or families in a particular structure. You said it could, for example, an R3 can now house 3, or is it 4 or 5? I mean, I didn't quite get that.
Only three
Three.
in the 3-family
But
zone.
on a smaller lot, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I kind of wonder how you feel about that, and rather than asking you that, I guess my question is, do you as a body have the right to strike some of those things if you do not agree with them? So that's all I wanted to know.
The answer to that is no. Enabling legislation sometimes we'll say a community may do something, in which case it's optional. in other cases, it says communities shall do something, in which case it's not. What we're talking about here, this regulations for undersized lots, it's not optional.
And so what you're saying is that no one has the right to alter this, that is a city commission?
This came to us from the General Assembly. Only they can modify the Enabling Act.
And when it goes to, I'm sorry, tell me when my two's up, but, and when it goes to the city council, then they have the right then to approve or not approve it? Is that correct?
If they don't approve it, they do so at their peril. They'd be in violation of state law.
So they don't have the right to vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in the public room?
Jim Moore. I live on Benefit Street. I'm an attorney, and I was wondering about whether there is a new kind of set of legal standards for altering uses. We used to have special use permits and variances. Do I understand that there's now a new category of what is permitted and how it gets approved?
No, there's uses that are permitted, not permitted, or permitted by special use permit. The big change is that the Enabling Act says that if a use is by special use permit, that there have to be specific conditions within the zoning ordinance in order for, so that the zoning board has criteria to follow. And if there are no conditions for a special use permit, the Enabling Act says that the use shall be permitted by right.
So basically, it's kind of eviscerated to a certain degree the special use permit requirement.
No, I wouldn't say
Well,
that at all.
Well, if there are no conditions, then it gets approved.
Well, it's
It's no longer a special, needs a special use permit.
Mr. Moore, I'm not gonna give you a legal interpretation. You're a lawyer. I think you can read the law.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here from the general public who would like to speak on this item? Please come forward and state your name for the record. And then I'll start the timer.
Hi, Leslie Meyer, Fox Point residence, Dublin Street. I am concerned about the timing of this. I understand that you feel unequivocal pressure to move forward in stay in compliance with state law. So my question is then, what is the point of the comprehensive plan? And how does the zoning and how does usage and the kinds of decisions you need to make tonight interface with the comprehensive plan? The reason I bring it up twice, for two reasons. It turned out that in reading the comprehensive plan of 10 years ago, the zoning board went ahead and made changes that were not recommended in the comprehensive plan. And secondly, there's a comprehensive plan right now as we speak being developed. So it would seem that any vote that precedes the next comprehensive plan is I know your intentions are good, but it looks like a sneaky way to circumvent the next comprehensive plan. So how does this organization work with comprehensive plan?
I'm gonna let Bob respond to that one.
Yeah, excellent question. So first of all, this body is the body that that is charged with reviewing the comprehensive plan and referring it to the council for adoption. It also is the body that uses the comprehensive plan more than anybody because it reviews projects for consistency with the comprehensive plan. You're right that there's a process whereby the city adopts a comprehensive plan, and then the comprehensive plan informs what the zoning ordinance looks like. And that will happen once it happened in 2014. We adopted a comp plan, we adopted a zoning ordinance. We'll do the same once the comprehensive plan is done and adopted. However, the state is the entity that has the authority, what we call police power, that they delegate to the local communities, and the state gives the local communities the power to adopt zoning ordinances. And within that delegation, not only does it give us the power to adopt zoning ordinances, it also tells us that there are some things, regardless of what our comprehensive plan says, have to be in the zoning ordinance. Today, before these go into effect, we have to allow for accessory dwelling units. We have to allow for certain kinds of community residences. There are certain things that the state says, regardless of what you want to try to do locally, you're mandated to do it. Within that, however, there's still a broad range of ability of the city to chart its own course through regulation. But the assembly, and I believe, I don't want to speak for them, but I believe the reason they adopted these rules is because they feel that there are a lot of communities in the state that aren't doing enough to allow for the production of housing, which we desperately need statewide. So that's what they did, and we are following instructions from the state.
Just one more question. If the next comprehensive plan significantly contradicts the law which you are that came down from the state, is there a mechanism to change it yet again?
We're not going to be able to adopt a comprehensive plan that contravenes the requirements of the state. The state has to approve our comprehensive plan ultimately, and if we do something that's so radical that it violates state law, they won't approve our comprehensive plan.
Okay, thank you.
And just one more follow-up on that. The statutes that were passed at the General Assembly include many more regulations that municipalities have to adopt than we're talking about here today. And that's because we've already adopted quite a few of the things that are required by this legislation. Like they require unified development review by the City Plan Commission. We've been doing that for 5-6 years now. There are a lot of things that the state is trying to make it sort of a level playing field for all municipalities across the state, so that they're all have a baseline pretty much the same. And these are the standards that we all have to meet. So we don't really have a lot of leeway on this.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public here that would like to speak on this? I know we do have someone joining us in the virtual world, so we'll go to.
Okay, so we have Woli Genyo. You should be allowed to talk now.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi, can you please state your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Wally Genia. I'm a builder out of Providence. So I just had a quick question on the zoning ordinance, the changes that's posted online. There's some changes in blue and there's some in red. So can you just explain why some of them, because some of them are strike out in blue and some of them are strike out in red. So I thought initially the additions were blue and the removal were like red, but it's not consistent throughout the document.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. My intention was that they all were going to be in the same color. That reflects the fact that we had different people working on the ordinance simultaneously, so different colors simply represent different people striking and adding things. What's going to go to the council ultimately, everything's going to be in black and white with
Okay.
additions shown underlined and deletions shown crossed out. That's all.
Okay, so then my follow-up question to that is on the table 4.1, when we look at so if I'm reading this correctly, the minimum rear setback is increasing to 30 foot.
That's right.
Okay, so essentially it's reducing the size of the house you could put on a lot.
Not necessarily. The size of the house will be governed by other dimensional regulations, but for conforming lots, those that are 5,000 square feet and above, for the most part, it increases the rear yard setback. We've done some test fits and we feel that it's perfectly appropriate. It still gives a very generous amount of lot area that can be built upon.
Okay, because I was just running through a quick example with in the R3 where you're building a two-family that you have a 3,500 square foot, that actually shrinks the house a little more.
Yeah, if you're going to be on a lot that's smaller than 5,000 square feet, that 30 feet is going to shrink. You're going to take 3,500 divided by 5,000. That ratio, you multiply it by 30 feet, and that's your setback. It's going to be.
Oh, okay.
It's going to be like call it 60%. So you're going to be down to about 18 feet.
Okay, so I thought it was just saying it has to be 30 foot and that's it.
No.
Okay. All right, that answers my question. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the virtual world? I didn't see any other hands raised.
Sorry, let me just. Nope, nobody else.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any other questions of Bob or Alexis since they are here? I mean, my recommendation, what I hope to see is that we recommend this to the city council this evening and allow the team to continue to refine this, and if there's anything else that changes substantively or even minor changes, that we can speak about them again in October when we review the development review regulations.
I had one question, which is for projects that are currently being planned and are, permitting is imminent. How does that work? When do they?
If it's submitted before the ordinance goes into effect, they're under the old rules.
So say, for example, it's the first week of December when the city council adopts these zoning changes. It would be whatever that day is that the law goes into effect. Everything submitted the day before that is under the old rules. Everything after the day after is under the new.
It actually, I think we're gonna write the ordinance that's gonna say
January 1st.
it goes into effect January 1st.
Okay, that makes more
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
That would make sense, yes. All right, any other questions of Bob? Because I want him to read the staff report real quick and then we can discuss this a little bit more.
Okay, so in order to recommend this to the city council for approval, you need to make findings of consistency with the comprehensive plan and with the zoning ordinance, purposes of zoning. So we have listed in the staff report several items, LU1, LU3, BE2, and BE3. We believe that these are all objectives that are on point with this amendment. And then you see there are several points in Article 1 of the zoning ordinance that would indicate that this would be consistent with the purposes of zoning. So with that, our recommendation is that you advise the city council to approve the changes to the zoning ordinance, making the findings of consistency with comp plan and with the purposes of zoning.
No one has any further questions or comments. I'll make a motion that we issue a positive recommendation to the city council.
Second.
All right, we'll go around with the voice vote. Nicole,
Aye.
Noel,
I,
Will.
Aye.
Miguel.
Aye.
Charlotte.
Aye.
And I vote aye. We look forward to continuing this discussion next month.
Thank you very much.
And we'll move right along to agenda item number 3, which is another city council referral. It's referral number 3553, the rezoning of 320 Angel Street.
All right, and thanks, commissioners. This is a request to rezone the subject lot from R1 to RP. And this lot is currently occupied by a mixed-use development consisting of building with medical offices on the ground floor and residences above. And they are requesting the zone change to RP in order to allow them some more flexibility in changing the uses on the ground floor and also to legalize the current use as it currently operates by variance. And so, yeah, the applicant's representative can tell you more.
Sure. Good evening, Joelle Rosa representing First Point Realty, who's the owner of the property. What Troyon just said to you is really it in a nutshell. This is pretty straightforward. And I know you have a long agenda, so I will be quick. This property contains 5 residential dwelling units and a dentist office on the first floor. It's been that way, like Troyan said, by variance or special exception. I'm not sure it says which one for decades ago that was approved. The dentist office appears to be winding down, and the owner of the property who purchased it a couple years ago just wants the ability to do to market it as some community commercial use there. That is not an intense use. So any neighborhood commercial use. That's allowed in residential professional across the street, but not in R1. So we're seeking to move the line over to cover this property, and really it fits as is into that use, with it being right across the street. I think it's a fairly easy fit. It's consistent with the comprehensive plan. It abuts on one side the brown fields, and on the other side there are multifamily, there are commercial uses in the area across the street. And that's really it. He is looking to open a very small art gallery. He's invested here. His daughter's up around, so they have interest in art, and really community art gallery is what he's looking to do. But the residential professional does limit it to these neighborhood commercial uses.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any questions of the applicant before Troyan reads the staff report? Okay, Troyan.
Thanks. And commissioners, based on the future land use map of the comprehensive plan, we find that the zone change would conform to the current land use pattern, which shows single and medium family residential development adjacent to each other. And should the zone change be approved, the character of the development would not change, and it would continue to operate as it has for a number of years. So therefore, we believe it is in conformance with the comprehensive plan, and it's not expected to negatively affect health, safety, and welfare. And based on that, we recommend that you make a positive recommendation to the city council to approve the change.
Okay, thank you, Troyan. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we have one letter in support of this that we
Yes.
received before we open up to public comment.
Yes, we did. We did receive a letter of support from Andrew Schwerin
Okay, thank you.
on
Well,
Angell Street.
and we'll include that as a part of the record as we're opening it up to public comment now. Thank you, Joel. All right, this is a public hearing. We will open this matter up to public comment now. If you're joining us from home, please raise your virtual hand or press *9 if you're calling in. And with that, again, same rules, 2 minutes. And state your name and your address for the record.
2 minutes. First Tompkins, 198 Hook Street. I just have a series of questions about this application. You go from, there seems to be a pattern of zoning churn with not much moving forward. You go from without any notice to any of the neighbors. You're going from an R1, which I didn't realize it was R1, but R1 to RP without any notice. It's not going from R1 to R2, going from R1 to RP. So I just find it rather interesting that with you can wave a wand and go from R1 to RP without any notice to any of the neighbors in an established neighborhood. This is not a comment on the applicant. It's just raises a lot of questions of why we have this constant churning of zoning. And we're not moving the city forward because people don't have as much confidence as they should in the zoning process. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just answer that real quick before we move on to the next. This is a city council referral. We're not doing anything but looking at the legitimacy of it. There will be another 4 meetings. And so this is going to be referred to the city council. They'll take it up. They will send it to a committee. At that time, all the butters within 200 feet will get legal notice. And then once it gets out of committee, it will go to the city council for 2 votes. So 2 separate meetings. So you will be getting notice on this. This is a referral. We're just giving recommendation. If we give a positive recommendation tonight, that's the path it'll take. If we don't, we can still take it out. But you know, we're just looking into this tonight. So that I hope that eases your concern. All right. Again, state your name and address for the record, and then we'll give you your 2 minutes.
John Gallagher, 243 Smith Street.
Thank you.
Providence. Now, I just got a question. Number 3, 320 Angell Street. Is that a protected zone? In other words, for preservation? Because, and for one thing, I'm just wondering because it does, number 4 doesn't state that there's going to be a demolition.
So we're just taking comment on number 3 right now.
Yeah, but I'm getting to the point on that.
It's in a historic
If
district.
number 4 doesn't state there's going to be a demolition, does number 3 state there's not going to be a demolition?
Number 3 is in a historic district. The agenda item we're hearing right now is in a historic district, and there's no demolition plan as far as I'm concerned. We're looking at a city council referral for a zone change only. That is all we're talking about.
I just wanted a question answered, that's all. I'll go
Thank
back
you.
to number 4.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the public for agenda item number 3? Okay, is there anyone in the virtual world who would like to comment on agenda item number 3, zoning referral for 320 Angell Street?
We have a Lucy and Lepro.
Okay.
I'm allowing you to talk, Lucy.
Hello?
Lucy, you could unmute. Going once, twice.
Lucy, are you able to unmute, please?
Okay, maybe she stepped away from her computer.
Okay. Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to speak? No, seeing none, we will close the public comment portion of this agenda item at this time. Welcome.
I think this is pretty straightforward. Does anyone have questions? If not, I'll make a motion to issue a positive recommendation to the council.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we'll go around with a voice vote. Nicole,
Aye.
Noel,
Aye.
Will.
Aye.
Miguel.
Aye.
Charlotte. And I vote aye. Best of luck at city council. Take a 5-minute break. Sure. All right, at this time, we're gonna just take a 5-minute break for restroom before we get into the next agenda item. And then we will be back. It's 5:56. We'll get back at 6 o'clock even. Okay, we are calling this meeting of the City Plan Commission back to order. It's 6:01, so we're a little delayed, my apologies. But we will move right along into the next agenda item. It's a major land development project, it's agenda item number 4, case number 23-030 MA 108 to 110 Waterman Street. This is a continuation of a matter that was originally heard on July 18th, 2023. I'd like to state for the record that I was absent from the original meeting, but I have familiarized myself with the record, watched the video, read the transcript, and perused all of the submitted information so that I can participate in this meeting this evening.
That's the case for everybody else.
And everyone else
was here.
was here. That was on the date that it was originally heard from July 18th. We just confirmed that to make sure. Nicole was chairing at the time, and the other 4 members were present.
Great. Okay, so I want to just promote Oscar here to panelist. Okay, so as you mentioned, this is a project that has been before you, and you declined to act on the master plan. Staff had some concerns that we asked for some time to look into, specifically about this building, and whether under the land development rules and under the zoning ordinance, there could be some sort of adverse impact on the built environment if this building gets demolished, and what, if anything, could be done about it. So we took the time since that meeting, and our preservation planner, Jason Martin, put together a memo that you have that talks about this building, a little bit about its history, who built it, and so forth. It also talks about the fact that it's been altered over time. So you have that. I mean, essentially the conclusion is that while this building might be considered to be contributing to the National Register District, it is not protected by a local historic district, and therefore it is not. There's no law within the city that would prevent this building from being demolished. And furthermore, because it's been altered over time and compromised, we felt that we did not have enough leverage in our zoning ordinance and in our development review regulations to, it would be unprecedented for us, and I think it would be legally unsustainable for us to say that this building could not be demolished. So that's kind of a little preview of our staff report and our recommendation, but I just wanted to sort of lay that groundwork. This plan is unchanged from what was submitted and reviewed. So while they do have a presentation here, I think you can decide as to whether you want to see that presentation, unless they have anything that they want to add that we're not aware of about what has changed. You have a record, you have a presentation. You did open it up to public comment. My understanding, I wasn't here at the time, but my understanding was that there wasn't any public comment that was taken. With respect to the staff report, our recommendation, perhaps the applicant has something that they want to respond to with respect to that. I'd say anything that's new in the record, which would include our staff report which would include the memo from Jason. There was also a letter submitted by the College Hill Neighborhood Association and an additional commentary that was emailed, actually someone who was speaking in favor of this project. But I'd say that might be germane for discussion and commentary. But other than that, I think the record is pretty well established.
I would tend to agree. I mean, allow the applicant to address anything that new that has transpired since the last meeting. You've already presented this material. It was opened up for public comment. No one was here to comment on this application at that time. So we do have new information. So if we do open up to public comment again, it'll be limited to the new information presented this evening and whatever Attorney Gary would like to present to us now.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, John Garrett, on behalf of the applicant with respect to this project. Oscar Ramirez, who's the architect, is here, is prepared to make a summary presentation if the church desires to see it. If there's no need, he doesn't need to do it. There's nothing new. A couple of comments that I can make on the Ed Pimentel was here, was prepared to discuss the comprehensive plan in relation to the historic preservation issues that were brought up at the last meeting. The staff memorandum, he was going to reinforce essentially what the staff memorandum indicated. So it's not my intention to bring him up, but just for the record, he was going to indicate essentially that this is not protected by any historic district. The comprehensive plan addresses that if you are interested in preserving or making demolition difficult, you should put it into a historic district. And that is essentially what the staff report says. So Mr. Pimentel was here, was going to testify to that. I'm not going to call him in the interest of time. And as I indicated, Oscar is here as well, and unless you have a desire to refresh your recollection on it. And Mr. Chairman, as you indicated, there is a transcript that has been available from the last meeting. You indicated you had reviewed it, so you're certainly available to discuss and to vote on this project. I did read the staff report, and I do want to comment with respect to one of the conditions when and if it's appropriate. I just didn't want to let that go by.
No, that's actually what I'd like you to comment on, if anything, because that is what's changed since last meeting. So I do agree that the acting chair requested from the staff to address the historic nature of this. We were able to do that. That is a new material, and I agree. Your consultant probably would say the same thing that our staff said. So the staff report did change slightly as well. So anything you'd like to comment on the staff report is totally appropriate.
So the staff report does talk about elimination of the rooftop deck. And you know, that's, as I talked about at the last meeting, that's an amenity which is favorable. It was approved for 116. It draws tenants to the property and makes it attractive as a building. I think also there's some symmetry with respect to 116 to have that as a similar type of building. So I think that it has an attractiveness about it. I will comment, and I understand that the concern about it, but I am concerned with respect to that's a design feature. And I really do not believe that this commission has design review about it. And so, although it's a feature, and this commission or the staff has recommended as a condition that it be not approved with the rooftop deck, I would suggest to you respectfully that it's not within the jurisdiction of this commission to engage in that type of a review. I'll leave it at that.
We may agree to disagree with that. And I feel very, very symbiotic with my fellow commissioners and the comments they made and the concerns they raised at the last meeting. So we'll leave it at that for the time being. All right. Commissioners, anything else to ask the applicant in light of the new information provided?
Can I add one thing? Oscar has prepared a rendering of
Oh, that was one thing that was asked by the acting chair, yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And Charlotte, I believe, requested that. I know that you're unable to give us a rendering of the middle because that is not currently under construction, but it was requested that both be presented in some sort of visible.
So that's you want to address that?
Yeah, and I think the purpose of a rendering is at least to show the proximity of the buildings and in terms of how that landscape is, or the skyline is starting to work out anyways, especially in this piece of the city. And obviously with the 112 property still intact, it's quite a bit of way between 108 and 116 anyways. And I think that's kind of the purpose of this rendering, just so you have an idea of how far away these buildings are, but how symmetrical they will be, especially once you start involving the amenities like the rooftop area for both buildings. So
Keep going with that roof there. And so this is representing the new subdivided lots, changing the size of 108 and the adjacent lot. And what will be post-development.
correct,
Assuming that middle parcel remains as is.
correct.
Commissioners, anything on that? Do you have any other vantage points of that, or is that the one that you have? Okay, thank you. All right. With that, I will move it to staff for the staff report.
Okay. So this, because this is a land development project, you have to make certain findings. These come from the State Enabling Act. First is consistency with the comprehensive plan. This is an area that the comprehensive plan intends for neighborhood, commercial, and mixed-use development. This development conforms to the land use designation. It is an area that's intended to foster pedestrian-oriented needs like retail and housing, and buildings oriented towards the street. As the building will be located on a main street in proximity to a commercial corridor, it conforms to objective BE2 of the plan, which encourages new development to complement traditional character. Creation of housing will conform to objective H2 of the plan as well. Compliance with the zoning ordinance. The uses are permitted in the zone. The development will conform with the dimensional and design requirements of the C2 zone, subject to you granting the dimensional adjustment for height. They comply with the design standard in section 503A8 that says no residential or parking uses permitted within 20 feet of the main street, which is Waterman Street. With respect to parking, this project does not require parking. It's in a C2 zone on a lot of less than 10,000 square feet. This is conditioned on the subdivision that they've proposed. They will meet the bicycle parking. They will need to deal with the fact that there's currently one parking space on the property that's reserved for another development at 134 Waterman Street. This will have to be addressed prior to approval. I don't know if this was addressed beyond Mr. Garrett. Saying that I don't know if he said on the record that it will be addressed. I don't know, Mr. Gary. Can you?
That'll be moved to 112.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so we'll make that a condition, and they will meet the landscaping requirement. With respect to the environmental impact, we do believe that this standard is applicable when it comes to the roof deck. As we say in the staff report, we're not in favor of the roof deck. To elaborate, we have concerns that it could produce a negative environmental impact with the potential of noise and unruly behavior. And based on the memo provided by we say HDC, it should say HDC staff. The building's demolition will not have a negative impact on the built environment, as it is not a singularly contributing structure. This will be a buildable lot. There's going to be a subdivision of reconfigured lots, but it will be a buildable lot. And then the property will have adequate pedestrian access from Waterman Street and Bones Alley. Therefore, we recommend that you approve the dimensional adjustment for height, finding that they're eligible for the adjustment as they will be providing for mixed-use development. And we also recommend that you approve the master plan, subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall document the building's interior and exterior as described in the planning department's memo and present an archival package to the Rhode Island Historic Preservation and Heritage Commission and the Department of Planning and Development. 2, the roof deck shall be eliminated from the preliminary plan. 3, the applicant shall find an alternate parking space for the space reserved for the property at 134 Waterman. It's been represented that that space will be moved to 112 Waterman, and there will have to be a restriction placed on that by our building official. Number 4, the applicant shall apply for an administrative subdivision to configure the lots as depicted on the plan. And finally, the applicant shall work with the city forester to determine appropriate planting locations.
Okay, thank you, Bob. So at this time, again, we already had public comment on the original application when it was presented. So we will open up public comment only as it pertains to the newly submitted items. We're not going back to talk about the entire application that was presented and discussed on the original hearing on July 18th. Again, same 2-minute time frame will apply, and with that, I see that there's already someone who would like to speak on this agenda item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris Tompkins, 198 Cook Street. I attended the July 18th meeting. I sat right over there, right where this gentleman standing. There was no closure of public hearing at that time. I'm sorry. I was here. Mr. Azar was not here. You were not here. There was clear direction that public comment would continue. On February 21st, this body and your volunteer board approved 116 Waterman project. Despite active opposition by Councilwoman Anthony, College Hill Neighborhood Association, Providence Preservation Society. Now I have a question. All of a sudden, 2-3 months later, there's another building of similar stature, 5 stories with a roof deck, that surprisingly is submitted to the planning department. But that wasn't mentioned at the prior hearings in January and February. And now there's suddenly a 3rd building, which might be coming up. So you're volunteering your time. I'm volunteering my time as a private resident. I'm not a paid hand. If you're going to volunteer your time, aren't you going to hold up to some high standards that if an applicant is going to submit a project, they're going to submit a project, not incrementally roll out a project? If that's the way you want to run the city, that's your decision. But you're volunteering your time. And I would think you'd want to have people be straightforward on what their goals are. My final comment, gonna pass along to here,
Please, bring this to fruition because your time is, expired.
So if you don't care about preservation, if you don't care about the neighborhood, how many times is sustainability in the comprehensive plan? Well, probably a bunch of times. So here's an article from a national real estate publication. If you tear down a building, 75% of the emissions of the building are created. So all this talk about sustainability, here it is, folks. You want a sustainable city, you protect existing buildings. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak on this matter?
No, I join also.
Good evening again. John Gallagher, 243 Smith Street.
Thank you.
I called up the State Preservation and Heritage Commission. I asked about that. The gentleman said I could use his name. I talked to Jeffrey Ademi, who's a staff person there. And he basically told me that that is a protected area. The only exception would be if the state if there was state funding or federal funding involved in this project. And if there were, it would have to be under review of the Preservation and Heritage Commission. And that's what I was told. So why is he more wrong than Mr. Agar?
Mr. Chair.
Well, yep.
Um,
Normally we don't do this as a back and forth, but I'll allow Bob to answer that.
he told you that if there's state or federal money in the project, then properties within National Register Historic Districts do have protection. To my knowledge, there's no state or federal money involved in this project.
Right.
Therefore,
No. He said that was an exception. If there's that's what he said. So I would double, well,
Mr. Gallagher,
it's either you or he's right. Which one?
I think you misinterpreted.
Which one? No,
you
well,
misinterpreted
I
what
think
he
you
told you.
better call up the commission.
Okay, thank you.
I think you better do that.
All right.
I will be doing it.
Good evening, Timothy Moore, again, on behalf of Mr. Tompkins and some of his neighbors. The comp plan as was applicable with other projects such as Mr. Jujube's building on Wickenden Street. The comp plan says that the scale and size and mass of buildings in a district are to be respected. It's not just the use. So when you look at this image on the screen and you see the little building that's there and you see the buildings across the street, this building creates, along with the other building, an enormous wall that's out of scale materially with the buildings at Wheeler School, with the houses that are on Brook Street. And I would request that the City Plan Commission take cognizance of the requirement of the comp plan that talks about maintaining the scale and mass of buildings in a neighborhood. There also is a number of provisions in your comp plan which encourage preservation and reuse of existing structures rather than demolition. There has been no recognition by this commission of that mandate, which appears in multiple sections of the comp plan. And on behalf of various neighborhoods, I wish that the planning commission would recognize these requirements that are in your comp plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in attendance that would like to speak on this agenda item? Right, now, this is a virtual meeting. If you're joining us from home, please raise your virtual hand or press *9 if you're calling in and you would wish to speak on this matter.
Mr. Chair, just very quickly for your benefit, this is language from the National Park Service, nps.gov. It's in their frequently asked questions about National Register of Historic Places. What it says is, under federal law, the listing of a property in the National Register places no restrictions on what a non-federal owner may do with their property up to and including destruction, unless the property is involved in a project that receives federal assistance, usually funding or licensing / permitting.
Thank you for that clarification, Bob.
Okay. With that,
There was someone.
There
who
was,
raised their
but
hand.
right now I'm not seeing any hands raised. Oh, yes,
All right.
Matt Shaling. Now, go ahead, Matt, you can unmute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Perfect. Thank you. My name is Matthew Schelling. I live at 372 Lloyd, and I just wanted to call in support of this development, and that I attended the meetings related to the neighboring development just a couple blocks down. And I was kind of sad to hear the opposition over there, especially related to density, because I feel like this is exactly the kind of place where we would like to see density happen in our city. I work just 2 or 3 blocks to the west of this location, and I live about a 10-minute walk away. And so, you know, there's a lot of talk about neighborhood opposition, but I just want to make it clear that there are people here who live here, who work here, who walk by there every day, and we're in support of this type of growth and this type of housing development to hopefully increase housing supply and reduce costs so Providence can be affordable to everybody. So I endorse and encourage you to approve the dimensional adjustments necessary and the projects in general. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else in the virtual world? Looks like we have someone else who just joined us in our physical world who would like to speak on this as well.
Toby Arment, 240 Ives. I'm also here to speak in favor of this development. I am a renter in the area, not fortunate enough to be a homeowner like some others. And in the city as a whole, rents are rising quite rapidly. I've noticed that in my recent apartment searching, and I think we need to take drastic measures to decrease rents. I think this is a small step in that direction, to increase in density, so I'm for that reason. Additionally, in response to the arguments about neighborhood character, on Waterman Street, there are buildings that are 6, 8, and 14 stories. So this does not seem to be out of line with any kind of height regulations or scale that people make arguments about. I also think this is very valuable to be promoting density in this area, as it is closely connected to transit. It is close to the Thayer Street Tunnel, which has 6 Ripta routes running through it. And I think we can do better things to, like this development will not have any parking. And I think it's good that we are taking more land to have more housing, not splitting that land parking, and allowing people who use the bus to, have development that is close to transit, just this site. So for all those reasons, I think this is a great development. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. All right, unless there are any others who wish to speak. We did say that there was a letter of support received for this as well, prior to the, along with the College Hill Neighborhood Association letter in opposition. All right. Well, I was just going to close public comment, but someone beat the buzzer. We will promote. Rachel, you've been promoted. You're allowed to speak now, so please state your name and address for the record.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Rachel Schwartz. I'm at 171 Power Street, Providence. I'm just curious because I was not at the earlier hearing, and I understood that there was only one building that was being approved, and now it sounds like there's 2, so, or maybe even 3. Can you describe the process for how that happens so that I understand it? Because I'm concerned. I only understood that there was one building.
Right now, we are only undertaking one application. We look at each application based on the material submitted, the testimony submitted. There was a similar application that was put before this body earlier this year down the street. And we've gotten no application for the third that was discussed by a few people.
So the one that you're showing today is the second building? Or you're approving the first one now?
This is a similar building to something that we reviewed and approved earlier this year.
And it looks to be identical, is that, I mean, I'm just looking at them on the pictures.
It's very similar, yes.
Okay, I guess I'm concerned about, this has come up in other venues, and I just don't know when one gets to talk about like the environmental impact from a serious point of view. Like, in other words, now people are building large buildings like this with white roofs. They're very concerned about generation of heat. They're concerned about trees, their setbacks. I don't know that I've heard anything about that, and I don't know where that ends up getting addressed or how it gets addressed. And does it need to be in the city plan now, all this environmental requirements, or is that sort of implicit in your review? How does that work?
Maybe I'll kick this one over to Bob. I believe that's probably a great discussion point for the comprehensive plan rewrites that we're currently undertaking.
It is, yes, and as with any development in a place like Providence or anywhere, you have to weigh the pros and cons of the development. Every development is going to have some sort of impact, but we try to mitigate those through our different regulations, not just zoning regulations, but also other environmental regulations that apply at the state level. And on balance, there are a lot of arguments that would say that developing in a city in an area that's already been developed, that already has the infrastructure that can support development, is preferable to developing forest land or wetlands or farmland outside of the city. So we always feel like developing in the city is a preferable choice from an environmental standpoint. That said, for the buildings that are built here, we do have regulations regarding tree canopy and stormwater and the like. We also like to see buildings that are built along transit corridors to cut down on vehicle usage. So again, this is always a balance, but we would, for the most part, say that that a development like this hits many of the important points of environmental sustainability.
And is there any requirement or desire for the city to look more at solar for electrical, in other words, rooftop solar? I mean, is any of that in any of the plans for the city to promote green energy use on these new buildings?
Do you have any other questions before we answer that? Because your time is expired, so I want to make sure we answer everything before pausing to answer this one.
No, I just, again, this is sort of, I go to these meetings and I keep thinking, well, why don't I hear about this? And I never do.
Very, very good questions. Thank you very much. We'll have Bob answer that, and we'll go on to the next person with this.
Thank you. So we do allow solar, and there are various programs that incentivize solar. We don't require solar to be installed. Some buildings are more appropriate for installation of solar than others. So it's not a mandate.
Thanks.
Thank you. This is the last call. Is there anyone else for public comment? Otherwise, we will close the public comment portion of this agenda item. All right, public comment is closed. So.
Oh, yeah. Megan just wants to make one point.
Before this body deliberates, I think there's maybe been a little confusion with some of the public comments, and I just want to clarify from a legal perspective. If a property owner owns more than one lot in a row or on a street, that people have tried to make the argument before that they need to come forward with a comprehensive plan for all of the parcels. That has not won the day in court. The law is clear that in considering this application, there's no requirement that we require the applicant to disclose to this body what his intentions are for nearby lots that he happens to also own. So I think some public commenters were trying to lump in 116 Waterman and maybe another parcel that he owns in the area, but each application is to be considered obviously with consideration of the surrounding environment, but there's no requirement that we make a property owner who owns multiple lots phase development of those lots.
Thank you for that clarification. Well, we've heard the staff report, we've heard public comment. Now it's time for discussion and deliberations. I'm in agreement with the staff that the roof deck is something I prefer not to see, especially if we're thinking about a concentration of them across multiple properties, 2, possibly 3 in the future. Makes sense that if that's something that we should probably try to avoid, because that would be an environmental nuisance. I'm okay with the height, and the application otherwise is a by right application. There's not really much here. It's very similar to the other application that we saw, obviously. What are other commissioners' thoughts at this time?
I agree with you. I also think it's really helpful to have that memo from the store.
Jason Meyer, yeah.
Building. So I feel like having that has given me enough information where I feel comfortable. I do agree with you and the staff that we can literally put in the conditions that are in the staff report. And so I feel comfortable doing it so long as we include it.
I was really surprised when I looked on Google Street View at this property. That the siding was not wood and the windows were not wood. Whoever did that did a pretty good job for it being replacement siding. I just assumed, but it's been modified significantly over the years, and not in accordance with historic standards. That's quite certain.
My question about the noise with the environmental, is there any? Because we talked about it in the previous building and discussed, I don't know, some monitoring system and all that.
Yes, and that was a
But is there
condition
any
of approval.
objective standard for noise that can be?
Isn't there a noise?
There is a
Well,
noise
there's a noise
ordinance,
ordinance.
and there's a decibel level that you are to remain in
But I mean,
compliance
we're
with.
talking about a design that will possibly produce noise.
Correct.
And so is there any, in the design world, is there any study, like we do the light
Like a
impact?
photometric, they did a shade study, which I appreciated
Is there a
seeing.
noise? Possible? The objective standard for noise, I mean, we all know it's gonna be noise, but we don't know that.
I mean, we assume that there may be. There are universities in the surrounding areas. You assume that they're going to be occupied by students, and therefore. That seems like a great place to congregate for a party that could get out of hand. maybe we want to
Well,
work with.
I understand that, and so. But can we design it?
Next to another building.
Exactly. I'll stop putting my foot in my mouth and let Bob try to answer that one.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's actually been quite a lot of news about noise in Providence, and and people are looking at it, and they're understanding the consequences of noise. And it's not a secret that while the city does have some pretty stringent noise regulations, the enforcement is doesn't happen on a regular basis. And it's also something where, you know, there could be enforcement and the music can get turned down or the noise can get turned down, but then 5 minutes later it's right back where it is. You know, people are going to behave as they will, and the built environment will send cues to them as to how they should be behaving. You know, we supported the last project at the corner with the roof deck, you know, with the conditions that it'd be monitored and everything like that. That building has not been built yet, that it's not up and running. We don't know if that's going to be very effective. You know, maybe time will tell. You know, I mean, if you, I don't know if you're suggesting that you're reluctant to deny it. I will say you still have preliminary plan here, so.
Remember, we went, I think there was a zoning application for variance at the Little American Club a while back. There was a zoning,
Yes.
there was a request, and it
A zoning
was
change.
about use and
That was for
entertainment and all that.
Yes,
And it was a noise related issue
yes,
in the zoning, I think,
yes.
and it was a special use permit.
It actually,
Applying.
well, they were applying for a zoning change, which would allow them to get entertainment. That ultimately that application was withdrawn. There is some debate at the council level about entertainment and noise levels, and it's sort of unresolved at this point about where we should be allowing entertainment, in large part because of the noise that it generates and the inability of the city to effectively control that noise.
So, you know, you presented it as an amenity, but it's an entertainment amenity. I don't know.
It's an amenity, well, you know, the entertainment, roof decks, they're amenities to the people who are using the property, but they may not be amenities to the general public.
Yeah,
you know, part of your job is to protect public health, safety, and welfare. And, you know, what I would say is I would be very interested in seeing how compliant 116 Waterman is with the noise ordinance, and with and how well that system that they're going to put into place works. That's unprecedented. What that condition where they're going to have monitoring and people to, you know, admonish their tenants and so forth. That's not something you often see from landlords. So, you know, one possibility is that if you're not comfortable adopting our condition, you still have until preliminary plan. But, you know, what I would suggest is that let's see how 116 Waterman does before allowing this to happen.
You know, it's not that I'm not in favor. I live across the way, so it's like I'd rather not have it. But I guess my question, so if we put in this the zone, they eliminate the roof deck from the preliminary plan, 5 years down the road, you know, the roof deck on the other building's road works, and they do anything to implement it later.
Well, I suppose they could build the structure and not foreclose the possibility of a roof deck. I don't know what that would entail.
I think Attorney Gary compared it to a swimming pool, an amenity that he tried to say that it was an amenity that's not often used, it's just available. I worry that when it is used, it'll be used quite differently than a swimming pool.
Good. Bring it up.
So, I mean, this is straightforward in a lot of ways, and we're discussing it more than I thought, but I still had some questions. I'll go on the deck first, just because we just finished speaking to that. It sounds like the concern is that it's close to another building that might have a deck. And that's a concern that the added value.
We already approved one.
I'm sorry,
We
we
already
approved one,
approved one
right,
with
so,
a deck,
so there could be
yes.
an added one, so that therefore.
And we
the
put
added value-
conditions on it that we've not yet seen to
With the
fruition.
applicant,
We don't
yeah,
know
correct.
how this is gonna work.
It just happens to be. Yeah, I don't know, it seems in a way unfair, because it's like you're holding someone hostage to another project, even though it's related. But the other issue is that I was thinking is, are we thinking of outlawing all types of decks in the city? Otherwise, where would they be appropriate? And it seems like they'll be more appropriate in like the downtown district or these type of areas where it seems to accommodate for more of that type of behavior. And I say that because Bob alluded to the study, the noise study, which is done by a Brown professor. And I was surprised that it didn't show as much complaints in the college areas. They suggested that that could be because the residents in that area are more accommodating for
They're used
that
to
or
it.
whatever. And that made me think that, well, we should have, like, you know, what's the appropriate place
Right.
for clubs and these kind of things, and I don't know, and then enforcement is difficult because who are you gonna find? The owner? As the person, I mean, unless the people are there and someone says it's my party, it's a little difficult. You have to get into a building upstairs. It's easier when it's a single or even a 2 or 3 family where you can say what's one of these residents versus units. So I don't know, but so that's more comments, I guess. I don't think we have answers to the
No.
questions. Megan had referred to the concern, and it's come up before in public testimony where, you know, folks feel that owners or developers have plans that they don't want to share in order to keep them separate. We don't have anything in place now to address that. It's a individual lot, it has to be addressed that way. But I just want to get some clarification. You said also there's legal precedent from other places throughout the country where they said that's not appropriate to look at adjacent properties. So let me rephrase. So we're looking at doing the city plan right now and going through that. It wouldn't be advisable for us to even entertain trying to engage or require developers to present, you know, multiple parcels at the same time, because it sounds like in the legal courts has already been stricken down multiple times.
So to clarify, just Rhode Island law,
Okay,
there's one decision. So
okay,
it's not a multiple decision.
okay.
It's the only decision I'm aware of to address the issue. To try to not to be too nuanced, but it's not that I don't think there's a prohibition on this board wanting to know how this development will fit into the surrounding environment. So to some extent, if there's some evidence to suggest there's knowledge there, I think we could inquire. But I think there's a difference between this board being required or owners being required to develop adjacent parcels simultaneously or in a larger comprehensive plan. The where this was previously being considered that resulted in a court decision was the Omni properties downtown. So
On Westminster Street.
Oh, yeah.
So just to give you an idea of a property owner owning multiple parcels. This board can't require, basically cannot require, it could inquire. And an applicant might want to give this board any information that it has, but it can't require that a lot owner of lot A not get approval on lot A until it presents all of its plans for lots A, B, and C.
You cannot, on our current comprehensive plan, but are you saying that that's something that can't be entertained for future variation or future comprehensive plans, like the one that we're working for the future?
Development plan, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, and currently right now our ordinance has lot level. We consider things at the lot level. But I think it's a matter of the state enabling it.
Okay.
Legislation.
Okay, thanks. And then last was the letter from the preservation planner. Just want to make sure I understood. So basically, because I started reading it, I was thinking I was going somewhere else, and then after I finished, wait a minute. You're just asking for historical records to keep in the archives.
That's right.
And okay, and right now we're only addressing it for this particular proposal, but his suggestion is to look at it for future.
Yes,
future projects
he's,
as well.
as an advocate for preservation, he made that editorial comment, but that's certainly not binding on you, it's just his suggestion.
Right, okay. No, I just want to be, it's in the, yeah, this is in the.
I take that as
on our
that
website.
he'd like them to hire a historical consultant to document everything with photographs and text and have a record of what exists prior to demolition.
Which he suggests is probably not a lot, at least from in interiors.
We
would
won't
assume
know.
it's not the case,
We
but
haven't been inside.
thanks.
Well, this one will need 2 votes. It would need a vote on the dimensional adjustment and a vote on the master plan. So there are 2 separate items, and the first one would be a dimensional adjustment.
Make a motion to approve the dimensional adjustment based on everything we've heard and what's in the staff report.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second by Will. We'll go around with the voice vote. Nicole.
Aye.
Noel.
Aye.
Will.
Aye.
Miguel.
Aye.
Charlotte.
Aye.
And I vote aye.
And then I'll make a motion to approve the master plan subject to the 5 conditions in the staff report based on everything we heard today and staff report. I think we do want to change condition 3 to find an alternative parking space on 112 Waterman.
That's what the applicant stated.
So we can amend that condition, but other than that.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll say.
Second by Noel. We'll go around with another voice vote. Nicole.
Aye.
Noel.
Aye.
Will.
Aye.
Miguel.
Aye.
Charlotte.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Best of luck.
Guys, I'm really not feeling well, so I'm gonna cut out from the last 2. I apologize.
Okay, and just to be clear, we know Charlotte is going to recuse on the last item, but we'll still have 4 members
For Brown. Yes.
for the last item.
Okay. All right, moving right along. To agenda item number 5, it's make minor subdivision with unified development review, case number 23-048 UDR 70. Is it Job Street? Job Street?
Call it Job Street.
There's a lot of biblical references in that area I've seen, so I thought maybe.
Right.
Job.
I always thought it was Job, but if the people who live there call it Job, then
We'll call it Job,
So
that's
be
fine.
it.
It's spelled J-O-B, so that's the item we're looking at right here.
okay, I'll do a quick introduction here. This is a minor subdivision. This would create 2 lots that comply with the lot area requirements, but because of the existing unique condition, they will not be able to achieve the required 50 feet of lot width. Each lot will have a width of just over 41 feet. So therefore, this needs unified development review. It needs a variance for nothing more than lot width. So I believe Mr. Garrity is representing the applicant here.
Take it away, Mr. Gary.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, John Garrity on behalf of the applicant. I always call it Job Street. I don't know if that's correct or not.
We'll allow both. We're all talking about the same thing here.
Thank you. So Mr. McHugh, who had a cold, I advised him to stay at home and come in remotely. So he needs to be promoted so that I can ask him some questions, Mr. Chairman.
So unfortunately, we as commissioners don't have that same ability. We have to be here in person or we can't participate in that.
So,
thanks, Nicole.
So let me just give a brief background before Mr. McHugh is testifying. So lot area, this is 50-foot frontage is required. This is a 10,000 plus square foot lot, which is short on the frontage to create two lots. This frontage is 51 point something for each of the lots. And that's the only adjustment. You can just get it in front of me here, Mr. Chairman.
John 41.
You said 51.
41.17 for one of the lots, 41.18 for the other lot.
Thank you.
But good with respect to lot area. There was, and I will mention, there was an easement across one of the sides of the property. This doesn't affect the lot area, but may have affected the size of the house. What we did, and I have a copy of it here, which I'd like to admit as an exhibit, is to have it terminated. Linda Court, which is in back of this property, at some point they put this easement on so that it would go, be able to go from Job Street, I think, to the houses in back, but they then constructed Linda Court, which has a cul-de-sac over there. So we asked the owners of the property to give us a release of those easements to create more room to be able to construct the house. So, Chairman, this is an exhibit of a release of an easement. I know it's getting late. I'm going to try to be quick with Mr. McHugh and ask that he do the same.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, Mr. McHugh has testified before this board, as well as the zoning board, as an expert in the area of building codes, land use and zoning. And I asked that he be qualified as an expert in those areas as well, for the purposes of this hearing.
We've accepted him previously and we will do so again. Mr. McHugh, before you state anything on the record, we're going to need the stenographer to swear you in. This is unified.
Mr. McHugh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Raise your right hand, please. You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please just state your name for the record.
It's Michael McHugh. It's MC, capital H-U-G-H.
Thank you.
So, Mr. McHugh, are you familiar with the property at 60 Job Street? Yes, I am.
He said, yeah, he said yes.
Yeah. Can you just describe it, please?
Yeah, presently it's a little over 10,000 square foot lot with an unused vacant one family dwelling there. It's an older house built probably in about 1910. I think it's about small house, 1.5 stories, about 750 square feet of area. And it basically sits in about the center of this fairly large lot.
And you made a site visit?
Excuse me?
You made a site visit of the property?
Yes, I was by the property and in the surrounding areas.
Yes. You're familiar with the subdivision plans that have been submitted to this board?
Yes, I am.
Can you describe the relief that is being requested here this evening as part of unified development, please?
Yes, they want to subdivide the lot. They're going to have the minimum lot size in the R1 zone, which is minimum 5,000 square feet. They will have that. The relief being sought is under table 4-1 is just for the lot frontage, whereby we will not have the 50-foot lot frontage. They will have a little bit over 41 feet each of lot frontage. And if I may describe how it fits in with the surrounding properties, most of the lots, not only within the radius area, but I took into consideration the entire plat. The entire plat is 77. Most of the lots are 40 feet in width. Most of them, I think the predominant lot size in the area 40 by 80 lots, 3,200 square feet of area. There are also quite a number of lots that are 40 feet by 100 feet, 4,000 square feet in area. And there are other lots that are 50 feet wide, but do not meet the minimum lot size of 5,000 square feet. So I think it fits very well into the area. If I can, I'm going to try to show you a map that I had drawn. I was going to bring it with me, but unfortunately, I'm a little under the weather and I'm not feeling well to leave the house. So I want to try to show this to you. I don't know if it'll show up on screen. It is a map of the area, and if you, I don't know if you can see the little red dots. There are many, many little red dots in there. Those are lots that are not only undersized, but are also 40 feet in width. There are approximately, I would say, 65 to 70% of the lots are undersized lots of record with 40-foot frontages, and even the ones that have the 50-foot frontages, they don't have the proper lot size, which is required 5,000 square feet of area. So the entire plat, not only the 200-foot radius, but the entire plat, with the exception of a couple of areas, basically all have undersized lots of record. They were originally recorded that size.
So it's your conclusion that the configuration of the lots proposed is consistent with the lots in the area. Is that correct?
Yes, very much. Again, they're going to build one-family dwellings, which are allowed. The general surrounding area, mostly one-family dwellings. There are a couple of two-family dwellings scattered around, and there are also a couple of three-family dwellings right within a radius diagonally across on Job Street. I think it's number 55 and 51. Those are three-family dwellings on 3,200 square foot lots. But again, most of the lots in the area are one-family dwellings, allowed uses, but on very small lots, either 3,200 or 4,000 square feet in size.
And for the record, this would be a single-family home on each lot of in excess of 5,000 square feet. Did you hear me? Mike, did you hear me?
Yes, I'm sorry.
So what is proposed is a single-family dwelling on each lot in excess of 5,000 square feet with approximately 41 feet of frontage.
Correct.
With respect to the standards for dimensional variance, is it your opinion that the hardship which the applicant seeks relief is due to the unique characteristics of the subject land and not to the general character of the surrounding area?
Yes, again, these lots were all created many, many years ago. This proposed two single-family residents are going to replace a single-family, kind of a rundown old 110-year-old house. So certainly it is due to the lot size and the way these lots were configured originally.
And for the record, the existing home is going to be removed and demolished.
Correct.
Right. Is the hardship the result of any prior actions of the applicant?
No, again, the prior applicant did not create any of these lots. All these lots are non-conforming lots that I had mentioned with the lot frontages the way they are and the lot sizes were all done many, many years ago when the original area was platted.
Is it the result of the applicant to realize greater financial gain?
In my opinion, no. There is, as we've discussed many times, a need for housing. This house will fit the general requirements in the zone. It's an allowed use. It's a dimensional variance only for the lot frontage, as I mentioned, and the lot frontage is very much in compliance with the area.
In your opinion, will the granting of the requested variance alter the general character of the surrounding area or impair the intent or purposes of the zoning ordinance or the comprehensive plan?
In my opinion, no. Again, it is an allowed use. It complies with the general surrounding area, being only two single-family residences on lots that are very much in compliance with the surrounding properties and would be in compliance with the zoning ordinance for the use and the comprehensive plan.
Is the relief being sought the least relief necessary to accomplish the purposes sought?
Yes, in order to demolish that old house, vacant house, and build two nice new one-family dwellings, this would be the least relief necessary. Again, it's an allowed use. We're seeking the dimensional variance only for the lot frontage. The lot size is sufficient.
And will the hardship to be suffered by the owner of the subject property if dimensional variance is not granted amount to more than a mere inconvenience to the applicant?
In my opinion, yes, again, because it is very much in compliance with the surrounding properties. They are legal uses and not only comply with the general area, but actually larger in size than most of the lots in the area. And again, it is an allowed use as two single-family residences.
Chairman, I have no further questions for Mr. McHugh. If the one does, then we can just wrap up.
Commission members, do you have any questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you.
And I just say the dimensional variance, we talked about the standards, the minor variation from the dimensional requirements, lot area meets the requirements, minor subdivision, which otherwise meets the requirements of the ordinance.
Thank you very much. All right, with that, let's hear the staff report and then we'll open up to public comment.
Thanks, commissioners. And do you want the findings for the variance or the subdivision? You want to take them together?
Yeah, might as well hear both. Use the microphone, Charlie.
All right. Thanks. And commissioners, as far as the dimensional variance goes, we do concur with the applicant's testimony. They went through each of the criteria required for a variance. And they demonstrate that this is the result of the unique character of the property. This would be the least relief necessary. And if this relief were not granted, this would result in more than a mere inconvenience. So based on the testimony that the applicant put forth, as well as our staff report, we recommend that you approve the request for relief for minimum lot width. Then moving on to the minor subdivision, as discussed, we do find that this subdivision would be in conformance with the future land use map of the comprehensive plan, as this area is intended for single family and low density residential development. And the lots that would be created would conform to the description of lots between 3,200 to 5,000 square feet. As far as the zoning ordinance goes, the lots will meet the minimum lot area. And subject to you granting the relief from the minimum lot width, they will be in compliance with the zoning ordinance. No additional relief will be required. And also, the applicant has indicated that they may seek a zone change to R2. They might do that in the future. And we should know that the relief will apply to this.
That's not out.
Okay, all right. So we just want to say the relief would apply to the lots. We don't foresee a negative environmental impact. These will be buildable lots with no constraints to development. However, we should point out that based on the location of the house, the applicant will be required to demolish the existing building prior to final plan approval to prevent lot lines from intersecting with the structure. And finally, street access will be provided from Job Street. So based on that, we would recommend that you approve the minor subdivision subject to these conditions, that the validity of the preliminary plan be extended to 1 year from the date of recording of the approval letter. The applicant demolish the structure prior to final plan approval, and that final plan approval be delegated to DPD staff.
Okay, thank you, Choyan. This is a public comment, so this time we'll open it up to this is a public hearing, so this time we'll open up to public comment. If you're joining us virtually, please raise your virtual hand or press *9. If you're calling in, we do have someone in the audience who wishes to speak on this matter or signed up as wanting to. Please come forward, state your name, address for the record. We're doing the same 2-minute time frames for all public comment this evening, so.
My name is Kathy Duane. I live at 56 Dodge Street.
Thank you.
I have a question regarding the lot size.
Go ahead. Sorry, I was asking a question.
Okay, I have a question regarding the lot size because we have 3 different numbers that we've been able to obtain as far as the lot size goes. And the applicant has been less than helpful in our neighborhood. He has let the property go. The grass is 6 feet tall. He ignored the councilman, the mayor's office, code enforcement. So our fear is that he'll stop this project and abandon it because of money. He's been disrespectful to the neighborhood, the whole neighborhood, on behalf of our neighbors. So that's our concerns regarding allowing this to happen.
Okay.
Okay.
So in regard to the lot size,
So in your paperwork, you have 10,567 square feet. But according to the city plan, it's 8,988, and then there's another one for 9,147. Now, I don't know if the easement affects that, or the release that we received, I don't know.
we'll let Bob take that.
Yeah, I noticed that when looking at our plat map, it does say 8,980. It also shows dimensions of 133 feet deep by 82 feet wide, which would indicate that the depth is between 133 feet and 117 feet, which would indicate that the number is wrong on the plat map. It would be more correct that it would be above 10,000 square feet. We always advise that our plat maps are not to be relied on, but surveys are to be relied on by their nature. They have produced a survey drawn up by a registered land surveyor in Rhode Island, and that number of 10,567 square feet.
Then I'll refer
In my,
to that.
yeah,
And the house is loaded with asbestos and lead. So when this thing is demolished, I would hope that it's tinted or whatever needs to be done. You have children in the neighborhood, pets. And
There are certain requirements when someone applies to the city for a demolition permit. They have to produce all, lead and asbestos reports. They have to follow, pest control. They need to apply for, show proof of.
this owner that we've been dealing with, so well.
Yeah, understood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just addressed that, I think Bob did a good job, but I will say that, and I went, the surveyor unfortunately is recovering from cancer treatment and was not able to be here today, but I did quiz him on that several times. He went out there, his surveys, he's certain because of that discrepancy that he did review that, and there is a discrepancy on the map, but he is certain that he has the numbers right. We're particularly concerned about it himself.
We have a stamp survey from a registered land surveyor, so that's what we'll rely on. Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public, either in the room or in our virtual audience, who wishes to speak on this matter? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public comment portion of this agenda item. Mr. Garrity, maybe you can bring those comments back to your client. The concern that some of the neighbors seem to have. Other than that, I see it as a pretty straightforward. We cannot base a decision on the applicant's previous acts or lack thereof. So we have to base it on the application in front of us, and it's pretty straightforward as far as that goes. Status quo is, I've seen many of these come before us over the time. So at this time, unless anyone else has any other discussion, I'd say that we should be voting on the dimensional relief and then the dimensional variance and then the minor subdivision.
So for today, this discussion and the report by staff, I move that we approve the dimensional variance from relief of the minimum lot width.
Okay, based on the findings of fact and testimony received today, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion. We'll go around and do a voice vote. Noel?
Aye.
Will?
Aye.
Miguel?
Aye.
Charlotte?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Move on to the minor subdivision.
I'll make the motion to approve the preliminary plan for the dimensional relief being granted to Unified Development Review with the following conditions: that the validity of the preliminary plan shall be extended to 1 year from the date of recording. The applicant shall demolish the existing structure prior to final approval, and the final plan approval should be delegated to the staff.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. We'll go around and do a voice vote. Noel?
Aye.
Will?
Aye.
Miguel?
Aye.
Charlotte?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Best of luck, Attorney Gary. Maybe you can confer with the neighbor. Next agenda item is institutional master plan. That's agenda item number 6. It's Brown University. At this time, I believe Bob Azar is going to depart. And we will see you next meeting. Thank you for your work.
Thank you,
tonight.
everybody.
And I believe. Sure. If you're recusing, you have to actually read. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, so for the record, Charlotte is going to recuse herself and leave as well as Bob Azar.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question before Bob leaves?
Yes.
It's about the meetings for the comprehensive plan that we're having. It was encouraged before that we can attend the public meetings that you're, that DPD put together with the wards. Does that also apply to other neighborhood meetings that may come up to discuss the comprehensive plan? I'm assuming it's okay, but I just wanted to get clarification.
Yes,
Absolutely.
You can certainly attend those meetings. The question, you are gonna actually be voting on this. This is this might be an interesting conversation with legal counsel. It's your role in this is quasi legislative. It's not quasi judicial.
Right.
So in that respect, should you be actively participating in these as opposed to attending and listening? I don't know that because you're not like voting on somebody's property rights when you vote for the comprehensive plan. It's a bigger thing. You're sort of part of the legislative process. So maybe we can talk about that and get you a little. Yeah, I don't know, Megan, if you have.
This is unrelated to the comp plan meetings.
Yeah.
Just generally.
Yeah.
Because some neighborhood associations are having like meetings to talk about the comp plan, their priorities, things like that.
And you wanted to go to hear them?
No,
or-
like if we can engage in them fully, like as a president. And
yes.
talk about, what people are desire to be in the plan, some of the ideas and.
Normally, we tell the commissioners that you stay away from discussions on items that are coming before you. If there's a neighborhood meeting, do not participate, try not to go to that meeting because we'll be voting on it in a semi-judicial capacity.
So, my thoughts tonight, I've been working since 8:30.
Do you want to get back to us with them?
Oh, well, I just want to say my initial impression is, because I would like to look at it, but, is that you can participate, because your role with regard to the comp plan is advisory. But, I would rather you didn't act on that advice tonight without me looking at it, again, so that I feel comfortable that I'm giving you the best advice.
Yeah, thanks.
And before we get in, while we're getting all the paperwork and all of our attendees that are leaving, we're going to take a 2-minute restroom break again before we head. Try to stay hydrated. That's a problem. All right, we will call this meeting of the City Plan Commission back to order. Again, we're on agenda item number 6, the Brown Institutional Master Plan. Who's teeing this one up for us? Is Lev or is it?
They're ready to go.
Yes, can introduce real quick. And commissioners, so as you know, institutions are required to present their institutional master plans to you every 5 years. And Brown is back with their 5-year master plan. And they will be making a presentation showing conformance with all the criteria that are required by the ordinance. Special focus for this edition are 2 projects that we'll be talking more about. One is a life sciences building in the Jewelry District, and the second is an indoor athletics practice facility. So they will be talking about that in addition to items like parking and transportation, the stormwater management plan, as well as landscaping, and any other items. And you were given a copy of the plan, so you should be a bit familiar with it, and I'll let the applicant take over.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Andrew Tights, T-E-I-T-Z, attorney with offices at 2 William Street in Providence, representing Brown University. Given the late hour here, our plan is not to go through everything about transportation and holdings and all of that. There's 150 some pages of that. If you want, we can take the next couple hours doing it, but we figured you probably didn't. We're gonna focus in on the 2 new things. That's mainly what we're gonna do, and that's mainly what this slide deck does, dealing with the integrated life science building in the Jewelry District, or in the not the Jewelry District anymore, but the Innovation District.
It's called, yeah.
And which, you know, we think we're on that cutting edge of the innovation, and also the new sports practice facility. We'll focus the presentation on that, and then if you have any questions about any of the other issues, we're happy to discuss them, but we won't take your time up with this.
Yeah, I think hitting the high level of significant changes since the last IMP or IMP amendment, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. All right.
So thank you very much. My name is Russell Carey. I'm Executive Vice President of Planning and Policy at Brown University, joined by a number of my colleagues who, when they speak or are called upon to answer questions, can introduce themselves. Really welcome the opportunity to be in front of the City Planning Commission. We've been working on a institutional master plan for well over a year. We engaged in extensive, as you know, from material public outreach in June. Got great community feedback, and also I think really widespread support. And we've seen a letter from the Providence Preservation Society being in support of both of these projects. So we really do think that we're well positioned and have brought this forward to you in a way that hopefully can be approved this evening. We have, as we're just being alluded to, we have 2 projects that are the heart of our institutional master plan, and those are what we'll cover and do those relatively quickly. One is the integrated life sciences building, which has been in design for more than a year, proposed to go into the Jewelry District. And the other is a much earlier stage project, an indoor practice facility, in which we are just in the process of selecting an architect. So I just want to emphasize that that has not been designed and still has quite a bit of process yet to go. I'm going to set up a little bit of the discussion about the integrated life sciences building, and my colleague Noah Biffen from Pembroke Architects is going to describe it in more detail. I think, as you're probably, hopefully quite familiar with, the investments in the Jewelry District build on city and state priority of this area as an economic development engine for the region. We have been in the Jewelry District as a partner to the city and the state for well over a decade, having made several $100 million, more than that, of investment in that area, often through partnerships with developers that are producing tax revenue or developing tax revenue producing projects, as well as the home of our Albert Medical School, our Laboratory of Molecular Medicine. We're now an anchor tenant in the Rhode Island State Health Laboratory building, which just broke ground. We're renovating a floor in the 225 Dyer Wexford building for laboratory space. So we are putting hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars into this region of the city and for the state as a future life science and current and future life science hub, and really a place where both patient care will improve as a result of the work that's happening in this area, construction jobs will be created, and long-term permanent jobs will be created. Go ahead. This building in particular fills an academic need for the university where we have had, really just leading, internationally leading expertise in these areas in a wide range of fields related to life sciences. I'll show a slide in a moment with some of those just as a quick overview. We have had particular success in raising money for research positions in this area, particularly endowed professorships, but do not have physical space in which to put them. So we have really made very good and effective and efficient use of our laboratory space on College Hill. We're very sensitive to the growth constraints in that part of the city and are not proposing a major science building to go there. But there is opportunity in the Jewelry District, which we know is welcomed by the Jewelry District Association and neighbors. When this building is complete, it'll have, go ahead, that's fine. It'll have about 600 people working there who are not currently working in the city of Providence in a wide variety of academic areas. We can come back to this if there's interest. I think I would just underscore that areas like our Legoretta Cancer Center, our Carney Brain Science Institute, areas like infectious disease and aging, we have a lot of expertise in that already. The opportunity to invest in this program in the building will only expand that and bring researchers who are faculty, postdocs, graduate students to Providence and to Rhode Island from around the world, making an impact on these really pressing health concerns that has immediate impact on residents of the city and the state. So that's the academic mission and goal of this building, in a really both an academic framework as well as a campus development, city development framework as well. So I'm going to turn to Noah, who, as I mentioned earlier, has been leading the design of this building for over a year. So we're much further along than the other project we're going to talk about in a moment. And we've done so in a very consultative and collegial way with the Jewelry District Association and our neighbors in this area of the city. So, Noah.
Great. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Noah Bicklin. I'm a senior principal at 10 Burke Architects in New York. And also former Brown graduate, so I have a lot of history with the city here, and it's a real honor to be working in the city. I think just to echo what Russell said, I think, and build on it in terms of the architectural implications, I think for us, this is a really, this has the potential to be a really important building for Providence. And I think making a world-class research building here is not only about planning a building that works really well for research, I think it's also about planning a building that works really well for the city making and the kind of fabric of the city. And so I do want to focus in terms of a few of these slides on the kind of public realm and how the building engages that. For orientation, the Integrated Life Sciences Building, or ILSB, is going to be located at 233 Richmond Street. So that's along Richmond, with Ship Street at the north, and Elm and Chestnut at the south, and Elbow at the west. The building is planned to be 300,000 square feet, 7-story building. That it will be approximately 130 feet high to the main roof level, with a mechanical penthouse above that. The height is comparable to the Rhode Island Department of Health building that's just breaking ground and is across Ship Street Plaza. Construction is planned to start in next summer, so kind of late summer 2024 through construction going through late 2026, early 2027. So that's the basics of timeline for the project. You go to the next slide. So here's a site plan for the project. I'll just take a step back. This is in the downtown design district, and we're seeking development bonuses to build to the 130 feet height. And those development bonuses include publicly accessible open space on 25% of the or 60% of the site area, along with active ground floor uses that would be approximately 25% of the ground floor. So those are two really important principles as we've been developing the site plan, with the goal of really creating places, accessible places that are really great to gather in, encourage connections and axes that extend some of the key pedestrian zones within these blocks, and in addition to promoting kind of activity indoors and outdoors. So it's an L-shaped building, which you can see here, with an entry focused along Richmond Street. There's many of the kind of main public programs are oriented so that they animate and activate Richmond Street along its length, which Richmond Street just for orientation is running left-right. A cafe plan for the north end of the site is an outdoor terrace, an entry area that has a connection through the site that would have a kind of gallery function and a pre-function for an auditorium, which we're calling the forum. And then what we're calling an education lab at the south of the site that would open up into a publicly accessible open space there, along with an additional publicly accessible open space, which we're calling the patio, which connects the site from Richmond through to Elbow and Chestnut. I think creating these kind of more of these connections through the block, we feel is really important to kind of break down the scale and the experience of the pedestrian environment. Loading would be located off of Elbow Street. This gives us a way both to consolidate that, make the research work really well, but also allows us to use the rest of the site for some of that publicly accessible open space. I have a slide later. I'll just note that there's a potential bridge that we're considering that would connect 70 Ship Street and the ILSB above the street level between the second floor of ILSB and third floor of 70 Ship Street. The other thing that maybe focus on for this slide before I move on is just some of the sustainability strategies that this project has planned. We're removing 26,000 square feet of asphalt and impervious surface on the site, and replacing it with landscapes that have native plantings and also have integrated stormwater features. This area has a real stormwater burden, and I think the landscape and landscape approach has a real opportunity to help ease that burden. So that's a key part of the approach, along with introducing street trees and plantings that help reduce this heat island effect, et cetera. In terms of massing, I think I'll try to move through these fairly quickly, but I think we're really working to use setbacks, strategic setbacks along street level and the roof to break down the scale of the buildings and connect it to the massing of nearby buildings, as well as shape the ground floor experience to reinforce Richmond Street as well as other streets for pedestrian access. And you can see some of the both programs that we're doing and also the kind of shaping of the building that begins to create those effects. On the next slide, you'll see a massing model which shows the ILSB in the center and places it in context to some of these other buildings, including the Rhode Island Department of Health building, which is being planned, which you can see in the foreground there, along with the 0.225 building there, to get a sense of the kind of scale of the project in relationship to this growing mixed-use area. On the next slide, you'll see some additional model views where you can see how the way that we've shaped the setbacks and inflections to begin to speak to the surrounding buildings and begin to kind of break down the scale of the ILSB building itself. On the next slide, these are some of the conceptual interior sketches that get at the character that we're aiming for the ground floor and the interior and also the research floors. So on the upper slide there is a sketch of that forum or flat floor auditorium space. You can see the sense of connection to the lobby space, as well as kind of that in turn the lobby space connecting to the outdoors. On the lower slide, you'll notice the concept for the research environments, that they'd be light-filled, really highly functional research places, but they're also places to work, and they need to be need to have a really great character that really draws people here and allows people to do their best work. So these are some of the kind of key concepts for the interior. On the next slide, you'll see an initial view of the exterior sketch for the outside of the building and the architecture. This is a view looking south, almost from the Rhode Island Department of Health, looking at down Richmond at Ship Street. I think our focus has really been at and you can see here the way in which we've used those setbacks and also articulation of the ground floor to really break down the scale of the building. I think what we've been really focused on is taking inspiration from the solidity, depth, and texture of the historic jewelry district buildings, building on those, and also introducing some new concepts, particularly around visibility, transparency, and connectivity at the ground floor to really help promote that sort of public realm. So these are all some of the concepts that we've been developing and presenting to the community as well. And here's a slide that just kind of in more detail shows exactly where that potential bridge connection to 70 Ship Street from the ILSB would be located across Elbow Street. And finally, I think in summary, I think we're really looking to create a building that helps reinforce a really fantastic and growing public realm in the jewelry district. Yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything.
No, I think that was what we wanted to show at this building, and I can go right into our second project if that works for you, and then we can obviously pause for any questions that the commission may have. So our second project, as I mentioned earlier, is an indoor practice facility. So essentially, this is an indoor turf field, something that many of our peer institutions when we compete for students and student athletes have, is really in terms of being both a competitive intercollegiate varsity athletic program at Division I level, especially in the Northeast, really essentially a requirement, I would say. And then also an opportunity to create more opportunities for recreational intramural use in an indoor environment throughout the year. This is a project that is obviously quite a bit simpler than a science building, but still with some significant sensitivities given its surrounding context, and something we're proceeding very carefully with. As I mentioned earlier, we go to the next slide, Paul. We have not begun the design on this yet. We're just near the tail end of an architect selection process. And then we've been very thoughtful and engaged with finding an architect who will connect well with the community, because I think conversations with both the College Hill Neighborhood Association and particularly our immediate neighbors on Stimson Avenue is going to be really critical to us. This came out of a larger master plan for our Division of Athletics in terms of really how we're fulfilling our mission, how we can best serve our competitive teams, as well as our recreational and intramural activities, and how we make the most effective use of what we call the Erickson Athletic Complex, which is this area, which is just to the east of Oak Street, and particularly being compliant with the institutional zone and the comprehensive plan, making the most effective use of our existing footprint. The site for this building is the sort of orangish area that's sketched out there. It's immediately adjacent to existing athletic complexes to the west, and then athletic fields to the east. Its current use is an athletic field, a turf field without lights and without amplification. And as I'm sure you already know, quite close to a residential neighborhood, Stimson Ave, which is also the one single street historic district in the city of Providence. So we have really been effectively underutilizing that outdoor field because of potential noise and other types of disruptions and annoyances to those immediate neighbors. So being able to create an indoor facility here will bring all of that activity indoors and create a buffer, both from that immediate use of that field, enable us to use it more effectively and efficiently, which is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and shield them from other activities in that complex as well. So we think, and have gotten, as I'll say in a moment, we certainly have, there are concerns from the neighborhood as we went through the community process about how it will look and about its height, but the bringing those outdoor activities indoors is generally well supported and well received. This is a building, as we said in the earlier slide, with our current conceptual expectation of about 65 feet at the height of the peak of the roof. Obviously, it has to be designed in such a way that the interior space allows for athletic activity, including football, lacrosse, and other types of things where balls are going in the air. That is still a programmatic concept, and the design will do everything that we can to mitigate the impact of the height. And one of the things that we want to emphasize is over the course of the summer, in response to feedback from the Stimson Avenue neighbors, we began doing some early studies, which we're just going to show you a couple of examples of how we can mitigate that impact of the height in terms of things that really building on things we've already done, trying to have a green and other sort of buffer area between the residents and the athletic complex, and then doing different things through design and landscape and to make the impact of the height less severe. and more in keeping with the residential neighborhood that we're right on the edge of. We think in our conversations with the neighbors about that was well received. As we go through the design process, we feel confident that we can address this and design a building that will fit and also serve its needs. The last comment I would make on just about the building in particular, and then we can move on, Paul, is that everything we're proposing to do is allowed under the zoning ordinance. So in this instance, we're not asking for any waivers, and everything is allowed by right, particularly given its presence in the institutional zone. The last comment on this building before we conclude is this will not add any additional traffic to the area. This is not a competition facility. There's no visitors or bleachers or fan capacity indoors. It's strictly a practice and recreational intramural site. And so it's going to be really activity and people who are walking to it from who are already on the campus. We do know, if you go to the next slide, Paul, we do know that the impact of congestion, traffic, and events in particular has been a concern in this area of our campus. So we did a supplemental traffic study specifically focused on our athletic complex, particularly focused on when we had multiple events happening at once, identified a number of opportunities, including working with our neighbors at Wheeler and Moses Brown, and with our own communications and our own parking lots to better utilize those. And we're implementing those this fall. And have been very open and transparent with the neighborhood about that. We think we'll see improvements there as well. So with that, we're happy to conclude and answer any questions you may have. And thank you again for your time and your attention to our institutional master plan.
Thank you. Commissioners, I'll open it up to you guys first.
Oh, good to me. I like the development down through it.
And it's where
enjoyable so far.
Yeah, it's exactly where we're looking for that kind of investment, and I'm glad that's where it's being focused. I do appreciate the existing footprint being maintained in the other campus areas, so I think that's also something to commend
and improving the parking.
Yeah, yes. I also agree bringing some of that indoor activity or outdoor activity indoors is a net positive. One question, I assume everything in here has nothing to do with the current pilot discussions that are currently ongoing with the mayor and the city council. I know everyone's heard a lot about that lately.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to speak to that. So obviously we've reached agreements, and I say we, meaning that Brown, Providence College, Johnson Wales, RISD, with the mayor's administration. Brown has also entered into hasn't reached agreement with the administration on a separate agreement that's related together, which would over 20 years bring $223 million to the city of Providence, more than twice what the prior voluntary payment agreements were. Those have been introduced at the city council, referred to the finance committee. We were participating in the finance committee meeting about that last week. They have a public hearing next week, so it's working its way through there. In our proposed memorandum of agreement with the city, there are commitments that the city would support things that would then have to go through public processes, like the abandonment of blocks which are in the area of the integrated life sciences building. So those two blocks of Richmond Street and 2 other blocks of Elm Street, where they're surrounded entirely by Brown-owned buildings and land. For the in the block directly in front of this building, you think there are opportunities there to extend the pedestrian and green space and make that even more of an amenity to the neighborhood. Those plans would have to be developed and would have to go through all the necessary approval processes after the abandonment petition is approved. And so there are other things like that are associated with campus development and in particular the life sciences building, but they have to first be approved by the city council, and then we have to bring all of the things that we want to propose through all of their required approval processes. And what the mayor has agreed to is to support that, but we have to make the case and bring it through those processes.
So good news is that we would hear any street abandonment as a referral from the city council.
Yes.
So we'll see you then.
We're looking forward to that opportunity, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments for the applicant? I don't know if you've had a chance to peruse the entire IMP, but it's very thorough, very detailed. Hits on a lot of points that they're required to hit on, and even some that they're not required to, but do anyway. So thank you for such a comprehensive report. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
No other questions, then we'll hear a staff report and public hearing, so we'll open up the public comment.
All right, and thanks, Commissioner. So I'll make this really quick. The plan in front of you contains all the items that are required by the zoning ordinance and the comprehensive plan. And so we find that it conforms to the strategies A and B of objective LU7 of the comprehensive plan by providing information about parking as well as traffic. We find that the plan is consistent with objectives M1 and M6 of the plan. The IMP follows the format that's prescribed by the zoning ordinance. And they also include a schedule of public participation, which is required. And we only ask that the plan be amended based on any city council action that they require. And based on that, we recommend that you approve their institutional master.
Thank you, Joanna. All right, thank you very much. We're going to open this up to public comment now. So if there's any members of the public joining us virtually that would like to speak, raise your virtual hand or press *9. And then we obviously have members of the public here. Is there anyone here in our physical space who would like to speak on this agenda item? It's a hybrid meeting.
I really wanted to support for the item.
Wonderful. We'll note that. Grant Dovarian, voice support for the IMP. Thank you, Grant. I see a hand raised in our virtual world.
Do you? Oh, yeah, we do. Okay.
We are going to promote. Okay. Please state your name. Oh, hello.
Well, hello, everybody.
Not that we
It's been
need
a
to know,
long
but please,
meeting.
just for the record, state your name for the record.
Sharon Steele, President of the Jewelry District Association.
Thank you.
So I am here to offer my support for the Jewelry District portion of the institutional master plan submitted by Brown. Brown has been an extraordinary partner. We have had several meetings with the association, with the abutters, with all the interested parties, and they have answered whatever questions people have had. They have been an extraordinary partner, and they continue to be an extraordinary partner. I would like to register one correction. We are the Jewelry District. We are not the Knowledge District, nor are we the Innovation and Design District. So for the record, we would like to continue to be referred to as the Jewelry District.
So noted, Sharon. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Is there anyone else from the general public or joining us virtually that would like to speak on this agenda item? Seeing none, we will close the public comment portion of this agenda item. I am too. Well, I guess then at this time, we would entertain a motion. For
Approve the master plan as presented.
approve Brown University's institutional master plan. As
I'll make
presented.
the motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second. We'll go around and do a voice vote. Noel?
Aye.
Will?
Aye.
Miguel?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Best of luck. We look forward to seeing you soon. With that, that is our last agenda item. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
And we have a second. Adjourned. See you all next month.